Hello, winners, and welcome to Two for the Win with your hosts, Nick and Will. You know, every once in a while we sprinkle in entrepreneurship. We know this podcast on Monday Mindset is mostly about mindset and leadership, but there are parallels with entrepreneurship, and it's been a while since we did an entrepreneurship topic. So we are going to talk today about how to move from having an idea to action for first-time entrepreneurs, some practical steps and some advice to get started. But before we do, please be sure to subscribe, share, and follow Two for the Win on your favorite platform. I want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, nickmenard.com and the 1% Push, as well as his Amazon best-selling book, Mindset is My Degree. If you have not read it, check it out. A great and easy read. It's well written, so it's easy to read. All right, with that, happy Monday, Nick.
Happy Monday, Will. Hello, winners.
Let's go. So last week we talked about situational leadership styles, and we were thinking about, all right, do we build upon that or do we go back to entrepreneurship? And I think the way the world is going never hurts. And you reminded me of a saying a long time ago that I heard that I had forgotten. Ideally, you want to have 6 different income streams, whether that's real estate, stock, business, employment, whatever it is, but 6 ideally gives safety. So we decided to go back to entrepreneurship and kind of touch base for people maybe kicking around some ideas and just not sure how to get started or whether to start, and maybe sprinkle a little motivation seeds on their entrepreneurship soil. Ooh, that was pretty good. It was not
Maybe a
bad.
quote somewhere. It's going to be on ChatGTP tomorrow.
Yeah, just make sure the soil doesn't have. Well, anyway, so
Here you go.
any high level thoughts? Any high level thoughts before we jump into one of our favorite segments?
I love this topic because, let's be honest, we all know that having a normal job, it's usually not enough anymore, or it's very stressful. So it's always good to have some kind of security. And so, like you mentioned, it can be real estate, it can be stocks, it can be anything, bonds, anything like that. But business is definitely one part of it. And a lot of times we hear people, oh, I wish I could do that. Well, you can. Not every business needs a big investment. Actually,
Right.
those best businesses, the best ideas start with a very, very low investment. So we want to talk about those steps, or ideas about it, and then maybe if one person who listen to this decide in the future to take a leap of faith about this, I think that it's a success, and that's what we want to do. We want to impact one person at a time.
I love it. And you know what else would be cool? To eventually have that person come on the podcast and interview them.
There we go.
There it is. So
And
there's
it's incentive.
there's a little incentive for those who want to be on Two for the Win. All right. So before we go into the topic in depth, let's go with our favorite segment, quotes and quips. All right. Let's roll. So the first quote is from T.S. Eliot. That name may ring a bell. He was somebody who had some fame associated with his name. Oh, poet and didn't know it. But anyway, I'm going to go with the first quote. I'm firing on all cylinders today. Sorry, folks. T.S. Eliot is quoted as saying, "Only those who will risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go." Thoughts on that quote?
Yeah, I like it because it's true. Like you can never go too far. For me, it's all the opposite. You can just be scared to even start doing something because you see about all the obstacles, but you don't see about the positivity. And that's usually why someone never start. They have a bunch of excuses. And during my career, I mean, I failed a lot, and which is okay that I learned. But the problem is that I hear people all the time like, I wish it was the right time. It's not the right time for XYZ reason. All are good, but actually they're all bad.
Right.
Because there will never be a perfect time to start. Because if you have time, it usually means you don't have the money. And if you have the money, usually you don't have time. So I always said you need to pick and choose what you want, but it's going to be some challenges, definitely, and it's going to be some sacrifices. And then usually 5 years, 10 years later, when I'm successful in something that I'm doing, then people say, oh, it's too late now for me to start. Or I wish I was doing at that time, but no, I'm 8 years older, 10 years older. I have a son, I have a daughter. I cannot take the time to do so. It again is an excuse. It may be valid, but it's still an excuse. So never look at all the problem only. You need to be prepared for them, but look at all the great things that being an entrepreneur, having your own business can bring to you. And there is nothing more satisfying than to just be successful in something you create. That's the best reward you can have. Yes, money is important, but also the reward said, man, I started with zero. Like
Mhm.
I had zero knowledge in this industry. I had zero contact. And now look where I'm at. And entrepreneur will never be satisfied. But we
Right.
can literally look back and say, man, that's a long way I've been to get to where where I started and to where I am today. And I think that's the part that I wish more people would dare to take the leap of faith, because at the end of the day, you succeed or you learn, but you don't fail.
Yeah, and I think absolutely spot on. I think for a majority of people, inaction is rooted in fear. I think and I'm speaking more on my personal experience with this one. I think the other reason, which is a derivative of fear, but it's not truly fear based, it's comfort. And so when I first moved to Vegas, I didn't know anybody. I got a job as an assistant branch manager for a mortgage brokerage, and I got approached, to start the MLM with financial services on the side. And the main leader of that group in Las Vegas, who I think I've shared on the podcast before, was the most powerful speaker I've ever heard in person in my life. Like he was just a gifted and well skilled speaker. And I remember him talking to me. I was probably a year into it, and he's like, you're never really going to expand this unless you make things uncomfortable for yourself and make it you have too many outs. You have too many outs.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going home and having a chat with my wife, and I'm like, I think I should make the plunge. And she, of course, fortunate we didn't have kids at that time,
Mm-hmm.
so a little bit easier in some ways. But that was a big conversation. And then I fast forward, so I had a number of different entrepreneurship ventures during that time, and I've found that as I've advanced in my career, and now that I'm with a Fortune 500 company, remember the slinky where it goes like this? That's how I am with my side hustles. It's like sometimes I'm on, sometimes I'm off, and I know it's because I'm comfortable in some ways, right? Like I don't need to build something to feed my family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I would say, like, with that quote, that strikes me because it reminds me of another quote where they say the biggest fear is not that we will achieve our dreams. Our biggest fear is we're dreaming too small.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what always kind of gets me. And so again, I beat myself up mentally as much, if not more, than the next person. But I think the point that you're touching on, if it's fear, just act. If you're inconsistent, just worry about taking the next step. Try to build momentum again. Don't dwell too much on the past. Set it aside, move forward. Because again, in this world, agility wins. And if you have multiple streams of income, you're going to be far more protected than if you have everything resting in one basket. And what happens if somebody steals your basket?
I know, and it's funny because on my story, if you didn't listen to some episode in the past, and also the book, reading the book, I had no family member who were entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
So a lot of time you hear, well, I didn't have my parents who were doing it, or I didn't have any siblings doing it, so I never really got into it. Well, I didn't have any of it, and actually I had people like my parents pushing me to not do it. Why? You work at the bank.
Mhm.
It's perfect. Why would you want to build something? My mom to this day, I mean, she's in the 70s. When I talk to her and I'm like, oh, I start this, or I'm looking about this venture, I'm looking to add something else to my heart. She said, but why? Why are you doing this? You have a great job. Why you need anything like that? I'm like, well, but job can be gone like this.
Mhm.
And what then?
Right.
And I'm not satisfied with having one stream of income.
Mhm.
And so she doesn't understand that because she never was an entrepreneur, never owned a business. She was working the 9 to 5 job all,
Mhm.
all her life. And it's not, a knot on it, but it's just that it's not because you do have people around you that are doing it that you can have the drive. You can get the drive yourself, but like the comfort thing that you mentioned, that's
Mm-hmm.
so important. Don't rely on one thing,
Mm-hmm.
because when that thing is gone, then you're going to be stressed, you're going to be uncomfortable, and then you will take decisions that will be negative for you and your family most of the time. So do something, build something. It doesn't have to be $1 million like idea. You
Right.
can, I know people who are, and I'm very proud of those people who have a little side gig. I know of
Yeah,
someone
like
who,
Etsy or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
someone who was selling, like, that I know is selling candles.
Oh, yeah.
And she loves candles, and then she started doing candles, and she started to do like special looking candles. But she built like a 6-figure business
Mm-hmm.
of candles. That's amazing. And that's
Yeah.
someone with absolutely no background that just said, oh, it's my passion. I
Mm-hmm.
love beautiful thing and I love candles. So I will put them together. At first, everybody laughed about it, but now she's selling like hundreds and hundreds of candles a week.
Right.
And that's a business now. So do something that you feel passionate about. That's going to be easier. And then who knows what your next venture will be, because you will learn things that will guide you to another venture that you maybe know has no idea that you may be willing to do, but then you will learn something that will bring you to something else. I would have never thought I was going to do dream vacation like a travel agency ever. I was one of those. Why you need one? You can go online, until I realized the advantage to actually using one. So
Mm-hmm.
so you never know what your next thing will be, and so take the leap of faith and do it. And it's gonna be challenges, but it's gonna be so rewarding.
Oh, yeah, totally. And I would even say, you know, y- broaden your perspective on what you consider your passion. So, like, me, I'm very passionate about music. Well, if
Mhm.
I quit my job and try to become a musician, I would be living under a bridge because I can't sing, I can't play an instrument, I probably can't mix. Although maybe I could learn that a little
I
bit, but
confirm about the voice.
yeah. Like it would not be a pretty sight. But I'm passionate about music. But there's other ways to be passionate about something. So let's say, for example, I wanted to start an air conditioning business. I'm not necessarily passionate about air conditioning, although I certainly want to make sure I have air conditioning when it's hot and humid in Florida. But I could have passion about the process, or I could have passion
Service.
about marketing. Like, hey, this is how this business is typically built. I have an idea that's kind of unique or a niche or something that could exploit that. So whether I started my own business or bought an existing business, or like what you're saying, maybe it's crafts, like it's
Hmm.
passion and you start building on that. Maybe it's service, like my son. I think I shared this story, but I was giving him a little tough love when he was 16, just before he turned 17, about like he wanted to have nice things. He wanted to travel. And I'm like, I'm not your ATM. Like, I'm happy to give you some stuff, but you've got to earn some of this. And he got a bee in his bonnet. He's like, all right, I'm going to show dad. Went and applied for 5 jobs, didn't get a single offer, and spurred him to start his business. And now a few weeks ago, he got his own place at 19 years old. And
Hmm.
he's got 3 employees working for him building his business. So I mean, sometimes it's just about the right motivation, but you don't know. I mean, it's not like he was an expert in the type of work that he's doing, but he learned.
Exactly. And that's the beauty. That's why a mindset, which is the Monday mindset,
Yeah.
it's very important as well. Because at the end of the day, like you mentioned about music, if you're passionate by music like you are, but you don't have the voice and you don't have the instrument quality, maybe you can become an agent. It's
Yeah.
gonna be harder. You need to
Yeah.
have but you can always find something within the industry, or you can do event planner and focusing on DJing or whatever it is. But there are things that you can do who will be able to keep you close to your hobby or your passion, and do something without being, like, the most obvious piece of the business.
Yeah. Either that or I should channel my Adam Sandler, become the wedding singer and just
Yeah, no, don't do it. You will waste
divorce
something.
rate
Yeah.
spike. Why are all these weddings not lasting past the ceremony?
Higher
The
will, you will
reception?
know why.
Ears bleeding. All right, so let's go to the quip. Where was our quip? Oh yeah, yeah. This is
First
this
one.
first one,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Okay. So this one's from Reid Hoffman, who was the one of the founders of LinkedIn. And the quote is, starting a business is like jumping off a cliff and assembling the airplane on the way down.
Yeah, I mean, the way to to think about this quip, it's not literally in the sense of it depends of the startup investment. But I like the quip in the sense of you need to have some kind of a plan and you need to have some urgency. Because something that I also hear when people is like, oh, I'm thinking about an idea, and then they start, and then as soon as they start, they take 2 weeks with something else. And so what's happening is that they distance themselves with what they just started, and they never get back there. And if they never get back there, it's a waste of time and waste of money, whatever money you invest in. But it's very important to have a plan of action and take action immediately. It doesn't need to be finished immediately, but you need to start and have a plan to say, okay, this is where I want to be in a short period of time. The next 3 months, I want to do that. And then a 6-month goal, a year goal, 2 years goal, 5-year goal, whatever you want to do. But it's very important that you have something to start with and that you stick with it. It's like everything in life. If you just hope and pray, it's probably not going to happen. But if you have a plan, the chance to achieve the plan, maybe not in the timeline you wish for, but it's going to be achieved eventually. And I think that's what's important. So yes, like jumping on a plane and then building it because you need to make it happen. I would not be as dramatic maybe, but it's definitely important that you actually do the work to make the steps, because if you don't plan, if you start something without applying something immediately, the chances are very high that it's never going to be coming off the ground. So it's never going to be starting. So that's the way
I really like your take on it. I had a slightly different take. It's related, but different. The way I was thinking about it is, so often people fail to start because they want to make sure that they have the perfect plan instead of being comfortable with probability. So like very rarely does anything go 100% according to plan, whether it's for a company, whether it's for a business, anything in life. There's always
relationships,
curveballs and different things. And the way I was thinking about the quip is, hey, to your point, take the action, jump off the cliff. Now you'll figure out, well, obviously, hopefully it's a really high cliff, but as you're like assembling, you're going to figure out how to assemble the plane. So before you hit the ground, you're able to float away safely. Right. And I think that's where some people get tripped up. And I think, when I think back to my parents who dabbled with entrepreneurship but eventually settled for employment, is they became risk adverse. They didn't have absolute certainty that if they did X, Y, and Z, it would lead to A, B, and C. And so they didn't. And they're like, okay, I'm just going to trade my time for money, with employment. And I think, for those who listen to the podcast, you may know this, or maybe you don't about me, but I really enjoy poker. With poker, one of the biggest things that successful poker players do that people who aren't professional poker players don't do is they've developed comfort with variance. Because even if you do the odds that say 91% of the time, if you bet this with this board in your hand in the pot, you should win, 99% chance you don't. And yet, how many times I look at myself where I'm like, I made the perfect play. This person should have folded. They didn't. They caught the card on the river and I lose a big pot, but it wasn't. Very rarely do you have 100% certain hands of poker. Sometimes you do, but very rarely. And I think that's what stalls people too. It's like, just figure it out as you go. Just get started. Just by getting started, you're going to differentiate yourself from most people, because most people have ideas and never get started. In fact, I read this a long time ago. I can't remember the source, but they said that most people had at least $7 million making ideas, entrepreneurship ideas, but never acted on it. So, for example, I could have potentially started 7 different things and made $1 million off of each. I don't have $7 million right now. So, I mean,
close. No.
no, not after the stock.
I know.
A lot further away than what I was at the beginning of the year. But
That's so funny.
no, it's not. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, just getting started, and then you can figure it out as you go. Learn if you're naturally risk averse because you like everything planned out. Learn to be a little more comfortable with uncertainty, but focus on probability. If you can put the probability in your favor, it doesn't guarantee anything, but it increases your odds, and you'll be much better off usually in the long run.
I agree, and nobody should tell you what your risk averse you should be or not. Everybody have their own thing. Now, if you have zero risk, if you want to take zero risk, you never start. As I always said, you cannot fail if you don't start, but you never win.
That's right.
And so you have to choose. Do you want to win or you want to not fail? Because it's very different. And my risk averse level is very high, so I take risk all the time in my life. I mean, moving to the US without knowing language and knowing anyone, that was probably the biggest risk ever. But I would do it over again and again because it's literally the best thing I ever did in my life. Like, I'm so much happier here. I mean, I have more than I thought I would ever be after 12 years in the country. And I'm not where I want to be yet, but that's because of my mindset. I would never be happy, even, whatever I can reach. But prepare yourself, and we talk about it a lot. Prepare for the challenges. You may not know what they will be, but you need to know that the challenge will be there.
Yeah.
And I think the more prepared you are for this, the more happier you're gonna be in your life, and the less stressed you will be. Right. But if you think that, okay, I have the perfect plan, I know it's gonna work that way, then don't even start, because it's gonna be more things and different things that you don't even think about. But if you prepare yourself, I will have challenges, and here's how I will counter them. That's gonna be so much easier. And I think that's the most important thing when you start, knowing those things and be okay with it and smile.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And two last quick things before we jump into some of the other related items on this topic. One is talk to people. Like, if you've never started a business, talk to people. I remember you telling me the story when you started the travel agency. You were talking to all the other franchise owners and trying to glean knowledge from them. It expedited your learning curve, helped you avoid some first-time mistakes that they may have made because you learned from them. So talk to people. Like, you don't have to do it all on your own. There's plenty of people out there that can offer advice. The question is, which advice do you follow? Which one do you not? But that's a different problem.
And most people would love to give advice to people who actually are curious. The problem is people don't dare to ask, or they don't think it's needed. I the first 3-4 months, I literally was like taking information from everywhere. And like you said, we just classify a little bit and we understand, okay, that's more my direction than this one. But you hear, and now I do the opposite. I do it for other people. I got earlier today someone who had an agency for a couple of more years than me, but who struggled the last year and a half. And he reached out to me by Facebook and said, hey, Nick, we met at the national conference 2 years ago. I mean, I see your post. I see how you grow. That's fantastic. I mean, would you mind give me some advice about, how to build the associate team that you have and blah, blah, blah. And I just offer my advice, I would never say no to someone who reach out about something like that, because there are enough work for anyone, for everyone. And, trying to keep everything for yourself, it's, first of all, is not healthy, and it's never going to be the case. I will never be the only travel agent in the world. So,
yeah. And last quick inspirational story for those who may be thinking, well, I have a family, or I'm getting too old, or whatever the excuse is. Ray Kroc. If you don't know Ray Kroc, Ray Kroc was the person who bought the McDonald's restaurant from the McDonald's brothers and built it into a global empire. And he was in his 50s when he did that.
See,
Colonel Sanders. Colonel Sanders, you see his picture? That picture wasn't taken when he was in his 20s.
KFC.
I mean, now granted, those are restaurants, but the point is Ray Kroc, the Netflix story with Michael Keaton plays Ray Kroc. It's a great one. He wasn't looking to start a hamburger business. He saw their process of how they did it, and that's what got him passionate. And then, of course, the rest is history. Yeah. All right. So some practical tips, to you have this idea that's been floating in your head, and hopefully now after we've chatted about this, you have the courage to at least start taking steps forward with
Acquire
it.
McDonald's.
Yeah, maybe do it over a Happy Meal. Buy a Happy Meal, and that'll be your visual motivation to get you moving. But some tips, you know, some of these things are testing your idea. So I had somebody a few months ago approach me about an idea. They want to do a paver business, and I'm like, well, before you start like making all these pavers and buying concrete and getting the machinery, why don't you just put a Facebook or some other website, which is nothing to cost to do that, and start marketing in size demand? Like, how do you know people will buy the paver? Like, before you do all this hard work, like you need to source demand. So I think one of the things is, and you know, don't over engineer it, but there's ways you can test your idea to kind of get an idea of, is there market interest on the idea? Like for you, not to steal your thunder, but you were posting some of your trips on Facebook. People started contacting you and like, Eureka, I should be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It could be something like that as well.
No, absolutely. And try in the measure of possible. I know it's usually the advice and it's hard to do, but try to be as niche as possible.
Yeah.
You wanna, if you think about pavers or think about, do I want to do travertine mainly, or do I want to do like, try to figure it out in the area you live, what would be the biggest need. And it's easy. You have, ChatGPT, you have Google, you have to double check everything, but you have resources that are available for you to check how many competition you have in the area. Definitely if you want to do something like a product. Service is a little bit different because you can have a service globally, maybe from your garage, you know. So, but try to be a lot more specific than just I want to do, X, because that's going to help you also navigate the marketing process and the niche process of knowing if it's something that people even want.
Yeah. Here's a sneaky tip if someone hasn't ever noticed this, and I got it from Tim Ferriss, who wrote The 4-Hour Work Week. And if you ever notice on a website or commercial where they have long delivery cycles, so it says 4 to 6 weeks for delivery, what they're doing is they're actually sourcing demand before they fulfill ordering it. So like Tim Ferriss, he was going to do a supplement business. He started marketing the supplements online, said it was 4 to 6 weeks to delivery, marketed it for a couple weeks, got a bunch of orders, had something, went private labeled agreement with an established manufacturer, just put his name on it, and the rest is history. So yeah, he spent some money on advertising, he spent some money on the website, but a lot less than buying a whole bunch of product and having it sitting on a shelf.
And he get the money from the customer who to place his order. So he doesn't have like a large amount of money in the bank.
Yeah, because I mean he didn't have a storage facility to store. So anyway, there's different ways you can size the market demand that are lower risk, but again gives you a higher degree of confidence and probability that you might be onto something with that. You can also classify that research your market. I love your point about being more niche. It's kind of like business 101. I remember taking that course. So like you either want to be the less supply, high price, or high volume, low price. Where you get killed is if you're in the middle. So you're better off taking the extreme.
Yeah, and sometimes going higher in pricing is the way to go, because you will differentiate yourself, not by the price, but the price will attract a different kind of customers who will look for more quality. And if your service delivery is great, then you may have a product and have a bigger margin as well. So don't go for the cheapest, because I hear so many times, I want to be the cheapest. I want to be the cheapest because then our volume will be higher. It's not always the way to go. Sometimes it's better to have like less customer, but higher than the lowest. I mean, more volume, but very low. And maybe with X amount of return, you don't make any profit. And we hear that all the time. I mean, I'm a big Shark Tank guy. You hear that all the time. Oh, we sold 452,000 product have been sold. I'm like, great. What's in the bank? Oh, we are in debt. We still have like 2.3 million debt. So I don't make any money now because of customer acquisition is X. I'm like, that's a problem with your price tag. And you hear usually Mr. Wonderful or Cuban, always one of the two, said, well, the price point is not accurate. Like, yeah, but if it's more, then we are in that upper level end. It's all about then the service you provide, So it's very important to make sure that we understand, like, cheapest is not always the better, and then analyze everything and see what add value you can bring. If you do products, maybe it's not the product value, but the service part of the business will be the differentiator.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say quickly is develop a MVP. And we're not necessarily talking about most valuable player. It's a minimal viable product. Don't worry about it being perfect. Just get something going, whether it's a product, whether it's a service. Have a unique value proposition. What is going to make your product or service slightly unique? Doesn't have to be dramatically unique, slightly unique to the competition. Maybe everything is basically the same, but the way your competitors advertise, they don't touch on a point that you think would be important. Exploit that, market it, and then build it, and then you can, iterate on the product or service or make it more robust in a long time. So, not surprisingly, we spend a lot of time talking on the mindset. We can follow up with some more practical tips on entrepreneurship, but obviously we're passionate about it. We want people to live their best lives, and let's face it, we live in a world where money matters. And so if you have multiple streams of income coming in, hopefully you're living a life that's more suitable to what the lifestyle you want to lead than otherwise, and less risky. So that's the spirit of that. Any last closing thoughts before we wrap?
No, I think we can easily do a second episode on this and go more in detail about the different steps to do, because we spend a lot of time on the mindset piece.
Yeah, that's critical. All right, so there you have it, winners. Hopefully we whet your appetite a little bit, and we'll follow up with some more on this, but please be sure to subscribe, share, and follow 2 for the Win. We're on all the platforms, and thanks again to nickmenard.com and the 1% Push and his Amazon best-selling book, Mindset is My Degree, for sponsoring today's episode. That'll do it for this Monday Mindset. Take care, winners.
Bye, winners.